about myself is something I've kind of become used to. It doesn't really bother me, but
A KPRC2 exclusive, A.J. Armstrong, the man found guilty of murdering his parents, speaks only to our Rilwan Balogun. Antonio A.J. Armstrong Jr. is speaking out for the first time since being convicted for the murder of his mother and father, Don and Antonio Sr. in 2016, and he's only talking to KPRC2.
Yeah, that's right. Armstrong says he is under a false conviction because jurors didn't get to hear the full story about his family during his third trial. Joining us now is Rilwan Balogun, the man who interviewed him. You got to sit down with him for an hour, Rilwan. So tell us what it is that he thinks people didn't get to hear.
Yeah, Amy, Haley, good morning. There's plenty of things that he and his attorneys have tried to put into the trials these last few years. One of the things he said that the juries didn't quite understand was the alarm system that the family had, but also they wanted the juries to hear about a break-in at the family gym that happened a few days after the murder of his parents, Don and Antonio Sr. They tried that again this third trial. The judge didn't allow it because the judge said it didn't make sense to be in this hearing itself. So that's one of the things that they really tried to press forward and trying to bring into this third hearing. However, that part about the break-in was allowed in the other trials that Antonio Armstrong was presented, those other two trials in the years past.
Yeah, so I mean, you sat in for that whole trial and watched it all. I mean, did any new admissions? I mean, is he maintaining that he didn't kill his parents?
And that was one of the first questions we asked. As soon as we spoke with him, I asked him directly, why did you kill your parents? And he's maintained the same innocence, that he didn't do it. This is the same thing his attorneys were arguing during this third trial, that it wasn't him, it was someone else. So we kind of pressed him, if not you, then who? And we're trying to figure out if he might have known who did it, even though he says he didn't do it, but evidence that was presented to the jurors, and the jurors themselves said that he in fact did kill his parents.
Well, I understand. So you're saying that he's saying that, you know, we don't know the full story, but he believes that he's under a false conviction. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's what it was interesting. He said that during our interview, that false conviction was something myself and Investigates producer Jason Wynn, we kind of caught our attention. False conviction, it sounded something like an attorney would say, but we kind of pressed him on that. What is false conviction? What does this mean? And he just really thinks that he was not the right person for this crime.
So he's just saying he's wrongly accused. That's basically what he's trying to say.
That does sound like, though, a legal term, right?
Yeah.
That sort of maybe he's trying to set up for something.
Pave the way for another trial.
So I know, Rilwan, you, the KPRC2 Investigates team, broke that last-minute DNA evidence that they found and used in trial. What did he say about that, about the blood? You might remind people what that was all about, too.
Yeah, so in the days before the trial was supposed to start initially, this was supposed to start in July. In the Friday before the trial was going to start on a Monday. That Friday, Sergeant Rossi with Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, who was the experts for the prosecutors, the blood spatter expert, said, hey, after going over all of the evidence, she found some blood specks under the name tag Antonio A.J. was wearing the night he was interviewed by investigators. So after he goes to HPD headquarters, he's being investigated. HPD detectives put a name tag on him. Weeks later, days, years later after, actually, Sergeant Rossi is going through that evidence and peels back the name tag and finds specks of blood. This, I was really surprised. This is something Antonio was attacking really strongly during our evidence. He has an idea that he says this was planted evidence, and I believe we have some sound of that interview itself.
That evidence was planted, because I don't understand how, after 7 years in a case of this magnitude, the day before trial, you come out and say, there's been new evidence that we've now discovered. I don't even know how that's possible, but that's what the DA's office did, and it's unfortunate. And I feel that being the newest piece of evidence to the case, the only thing that really changed from the first trial to the second trial to the third trial, I felt that that evidence was probably the reason what got me in here, unfortunately. And it sucks because it's planted. It's not, there's no other way around it in my eyes.
And so him there saying that this was planted really kind of caught me off guard. So we pressed him on that. And so that's what you'll hear tonight at 6:30 during our playing of this full interview, asking him, okay, what do you mean by this? This was planted and by who?
That's really interesting. Yeah, that definitely makes me want to tune in, Rilwan. But one more thing, you know, we heard a lot about how prosecutors went to elaborate lengths to prove their case, and they built the Armstrong home staircase and a bed with mannequins. They were trying to represent where the Armstrongs were when they died. What were his reactions to all of the props that they used in this last trial?
And this was the first time prosecutors did this, bringing up these props to try and visually show to the jurors how the dimensions of the Armstrong home. I asked him about that, and he scoffed at it, saying that it wasn't the actual dimensions. The interesting part about it is because prosecutors said if Antonio was in fact in his bedroom on the 3rd floor, he said to interrogators the night of the incident that he went down the stairs and he locked eyes or saw the shooter. Prosecutors said if he did in fact come down the stairs, the shooter would have seen him. So they were saying that part of his story didn't make sense. And so he explains why he believes prosecutors' whole use of this rebuilding of the staircase made no sense in his eyes.
Rilwan, you know, I know you can tell us if we should wait for the real full story tonight. That's fine. But, you know, did he ever show emotion? Was he ever sad about losing his parents?
So he talks a bit about his dynamic or how he thought people perceived him. Because I'll say during our coverage, I mentioned that he didn't have emotions. I'll be honest about that. So he kind of talks about that in a bit. He says, what do you expect me to do during trial? What kind of emotions do you want me to have in this moment? I've never been through something like this. I don't know what emotions I should have. The part he really does get emotional about is when talking about his sister, his younger sister, who at the time was 12 years old. He says that she, through everyone, has been through the worst of all of this.
Wow. Very compelling. Thank you so much, Rilwan. Coming up in the next hour, KPRC2 Investigates producer Jason Wynn and digital content specialist Ninfa Saavedra. They're going to join us to talk more about Rilwan's exclusive interview with Antonio Armstrong.
Yeah, thanks again, Rilwan. And tonight you can watch his full interview with behind-the-scenes commentary from our team and the chance to join the conversation live. That's at 6:30 tonight on the KPRC 2+ live stream.